Alright lads, thanks for tuning in to another of my War Thunder vehicle reviews. Whether you're a new subscriber or a long time viewer of this channel, thank you very much for watching this video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the J-7E. This is a rank 7 battle rating 11.0 jet fighter added to the Chinese tech tree. Along with the F5A, the J-7E is now the go-to top tier fighter for the Chinese tech tree. But is it actually better than the F5A? And how does it stand up against the F4Es and the MiG-21 BISs? Stay tuned to find out. To unlock this jet, you will have to grind out 390,000 research points before purchasing the plane for a cost of 1,020,000 Silver Lions. To put this plane in your lineup, it will cost you an additional 290,000 Silver Lions. And being a top tier jet fighter, you almost certainly do need at least the experts and preferably the ace qualifications, costing 1,020,000 Silver Lions and 2,800 Golden Eagles respectively. This crew training massively increases your G-force tolerance, allowing you to pull longer and harder turns. While this crew training isn't necessary, I would highly recommend it with all jets above the battle rating of 9.0. But moving on to the repair cost, and in realistic battles, this plane will cost you 4,781 Silver Lions to repair. Pretty cheap to be honest. Moving on to the rewards, and in realistic battles with a premium account, you can expect a 464% RP modifier and a 255% Silver Lion modifier. In terms of customization, there currently aren't any skins available to purchase in the game, both for Golden Eagles and from the Guardian Marketplace. In this video we're going to cover the performance and firepower of this jet before finishing with a conclusion. If you do enjoy these sorts of video lads, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. Alright lads, moving on to the engine and performance, and this jet is powered by the Shenyang Liming WP13F jet engine. It produces 4,100 kg of thrust at military power, and when afterburning, that power increases up to 6,670 kg of thrust. This engine has slightly more power output than the MiG-21 BIS at military power, but the Tumansky engine in the MiG-21 BIS when afterburning produces 7,220 kg of thrust. So when afterburning, the J-7E's engine produces about 600 kg of thrust less than the MiG-21. This is by no means bad though, and both planes feel like rockets. But all this talk about engine power and thrust is pretty meaningless, so let me hit you with some stats. This plane can reach a top speed of 2,258 km per hour at an altitude of 12 km. Like all of the other MiG-21 chassis, the plane does struggle to match the Phantom's low altitude top speed, but at higher altitude, it absolutely blitzes the Phantom, at least in terms of high-end top speed. Going fast is great, but you have to actually get up to that top speed, so what about the rate of climb? Well, the J-7E can manage 179 meters per second in a climb. This is pretty good, but it is slightly less than the F4E. The F4E has a rate of climb of 189.5 meters per second, and the MiG-21 BIS has a rate of climb of 225 meters per second. So the J-7E isn't as much of a rocket as the MiG-21 BIS, but it by far feels better than the F4E. In my opinion, this is due to weight. While the F4E and the J-7E have similar flight performance, at least in terms of engine power and top speeds, the J-7E is a much lighter airframe, making it much more nimble. Not only does this give the J-7E a great turn rate, it also feels like it has great energy retention. In most MiG-21 style chassis, as soon as you start turning, that delta wing bleeds you with all your speed. Not so much with the J-7E. You can actually somewhat rate fight in this plane, as it doesn't seem to bleed its speed compared to other MiG-21 models, and especially compared to the F4Es. Hell, you can even dogfight F5As with this thing, as well as Cs and Es, although I'd be a little bit more careful with the latter two, as they have high performance missiles. Your great rate of turn, combined with the good flaps, make the J-7E probably one of the best turn fighting planes at battle rating 11.0. This came as a little bit of a shock to me, as my experience with the other MiG-21s, as I've said, has usually been awful when trying to turn fight. You just bleed all your speed. But the combination of a powerful engine, a high performance airframe, as well as good energy retention, air brakes and flaps, make the J-7E one of the best performing jets in my opinion. Alright, moving on to the good stuff, and the J-7E is powered by a single 30mm Type 30-1 cannon. This holds a measly 60 rounds and has a fire rate of 1000 rounds per minute. This weapon certainly is an acquired taste. While it does have very high damage, you do bleed through that ammunition very quickly. This obviously makes the cannon pretty hard to use, and you do have to be sparing with your shots. Another issue with this gun is its location. It's mounted just below the cockpit, on the left hand side of the airframe. This makes leading a target pretty difficult, as well as making head-on shooting nearly impossible, at least for a lowly pleb like me. As I said, there are some good things about this cannon. Its armor piercing rounds have a penetration of 60mm, so it's great for taking out those armoured cockpits of more American type fighters. We then come on to the weapons you can carry below your wings, and we'll start with the bombs. There are two different types of bombs you can carry, and the first are the 250kg Dash-3 bombs. These contain an explosive warhead of 122kg of TNT, and destroy any vehicle within a radius of 8 meters. These are alright, but nothing too impressive. Next up we have the 500kg Dash-3 bombs. They contain a warhead of 325kg of TNT, and will destroy any vehicle within a radius of 14 meters. You can either carry 4 bombs, or 2 bombs and 2 missiles, with the highest payload you're able to carry being 2 250kg bombs and 2 500kg bombs, for a combined total of 1.5 tons of ordnance. We next move on to rockets, and first up is a Type 90-1. This travels at a maximum speed of 610 meters per second and contains a high explosive anti-tank warhead containing 1.03kg of TNT. This does give it high penetration with 283mm, but the low payload weight does make it pretty bad in terms of post-penetration damage. So while you will be able to penetrate enemy tanks, doing damage to what's behind it isn't really going to be too easy. You might knock out the occasional commander or loader, but you aren't going to do massive damage with a single hit. Next up, we have the Type 130-2 rockets. Again, these rockets travel at a maximum speed of 610 meters per second, but contain a whopping 16.5kg of TNT. These are good old-fashioned traditional rockets, and don't have a high explosive anti-tank warhead, meaning they do their damage using high explosive pressure. The 16kg of TNT give them 70mm of explosive penetration, or 70mm of overpressure penetration. This is actually pretty good, especially if you hit the top of an enemy tank, as that 16 kilos of TNT should instantly kill a vehicle. These rockets are much larger than the previous rockets, so you can only carry a few of them. You can carry a maximum of 4 rockets per rocket pod. If you compare this to the Type 90, which can carry 8 rockets per rocket pod. This means you can carry a maximum of 16 Type 130 rockets, compared to 28 of the Type 90 rockets. The larger Type 130s are pretty good for ground realistic battles, however the top tier air defense systems such as the ADATs will probably make you mincemeat before you even get into launch range. We now come on to the air-to-air missiles, and first up we have the PL-2. This is a rear aspect infrared guided missile and has a rear range lock of 3.5 kilometers. It has a maximum overload of 10 Gs, but a maximum overload during launch of 4 Gs. This is somewhat similar to the American AIM-9E, and is a pretty good stock missile. I'm not going to lie, it's not amazing, but for a stock missile it gets the job done. These certainly aren't any AIM-9Js. You'll have to be highly selective about when you fire these missiles. You want to be trying to target players who are slow, low, and out of energy. This will suit your stock missiles better, as an opponent in this energy state will not be able to dodge this missile. Things change however when you unlock the PL-5B. This has a maximum overload of 20 Gs, but still retains a pretty poor launch lock of 4 Gs. It has a slightly longer real range lock at 5.5 kilometers. However, this isn't too important. The PL-5B does lose a little bit of explosive filler, but it is so much better with that 20 Gs of overload. I'd say that these missiles are slightly better than the AIM-9Js, however they are a little bit more vulnerable to flares. The PL-5s perform very well at long range, so you can easily fire these missiles between 3 and 4 kilometers. However, I'd always recommend closing to between 2.5 to 2 kilometers just to maximise the kill. The flares found on the F4Es and other NATO jets will probably counter these missiles, so be wary, don't fire at an opponent that is already pre-flaring. And that's it for our weapons boys. The J-7E contains no radar system, so it can't have any semi-active homing or Fox 1 missiles, and I'm guessing the Chinese were just behind in tech in general, as they have no air-to-ground missiles either. But overall, the J-7E is an incredibly capable jet fighter. While its performance as a multi-role is questionable, now due to the lack of ordnance, its air-to-air dogfighting ability, combined with its engine performance, airframe manoeuvrability and performance, as well as its high-performance missiles, truly do make the J-7E one of the best dogfighting jets at battle rating 11.0. Before we start the conclusion, let me know down below what vehicle you'd like to see reviewed next. And what do you think about the J-7E? I kinda like it, as you're about to find out. So to conclude, I generally do think that the J-7E is one of the best Soviet bloc planes on the market, and is probably just as good, if not better than the F4E, at least for people who enjoy my kind of playstyle, which is an aggressive and turning type playstyle, typically found with planes such as the F5As, the Mirages, and now the J-7E. As I said, with this plane you can be highly aggressive. You can turn after an opponent, launch missiles, and then try and spray them down. An enemy that commits to a dogfight with you is a dead enemy. It is as simple as that. I've fought F5s, F4s, Mirages. Pretty much every jet you can think of you can beat in a dogfight, with the exception of maybe the Draken. And even then, you can take it high, bleed it of its energy, and then come down on top of it, and you've got it. The J-7E combines great manoeuvrability with a high performance engine, giving you the ability to both turn fight and then run away if things go sideways. While the cannon is a little bit hit and miss, and in my case a lot more miss than hit, but it's still a solid cannon. It probably is slightly better than the gun found on the MiG-21, that shitty little 23mm thing, but it is still an incredibly hard gun to use. In terms of missiles, no complaints whatsoever. The PL5s are exceptional, and while they are rather susceptible to flares, they do an amazing job at long range, making them just as good as the AIM-9Js in my opinion. In terms of bombs and rockets, while this isn't a ground attacker, it can be used as one in a pinch, but I'd say that the J-7E is a thoroughbred fighter. I would highly recommend to anybody grind this jet. It is incredibly good fun, and is a far more rewarding jet to play. I'm not a fan of the F4Zs, go fast, fire a missile and then boom and zoom for 20 minutes as you turn around. I like to get stuck into the action, fighting, one-on-one. Although most of the time, I have been in dogfights with multiple opponents and then have been killed. But when you actually are in a dogfight with multiple jets in this thing, you just feel good. Even if you die, you get one kill maybe, but just the fact you've made the enemy work so hard to kill you, it just feels a lot good. As I said, I'd fully recommend anyone to grind out this plane. It is a big grind, I know that, but I'd say it is well worth it, boys. With the review over, there's only one thing left to say. Thank you very much for watching, boys. I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to leave a comment down below as to what you'd like to see next, and what you think about this plane. Once again, thank you very much for watching, boys, and I'll see you later.